go to the Render Task Mode. Open the YNP Camera Editor. Change the name to Main. Use the Edit Next button on the Editor toolbar to move to the YNP Planimetric window and rename it Plan. Open a Main View, a Plan View, and Database Editor. Remember, keyboard shortcut is Alt-D. You can also use the Database button on the icon toolbar. Let's go up to the Plan View. Open the View Preferences. That's right-click, Open View Preferences, and turn to the Terrain page. Here we'd like to enable Terrain Polygon Edges. Zoom in on the Plan View. The plus key or your mouse scroll wheel. And once we get down close, you'll see that what we have here is a wireframe representation of the 3D terrain surface. It's a grid of regularly spaced, georeferenced points, each with an elevation. Along with its new look and tabular organization, the Database Editor can now undock and expand to show you most of what you have in the editor. So undock, click and drag it out. To redock it, just go ahead and bring it down to size again. Click the dock button. And let's turn to the extent page. Here we have the YNP-10M. That's our DEM. And if we click on it, it becomes highlighted in the main view there, so you know that's active. Let's slide right to the NS, the north-south grid, and the east-west grid columns. The DEM we imported has a resolution of 10 meters. That is, the grid size is 10 meters by 10 meters, which means point to point, 10 meters in the grid. At render time, these grid cells are divided into triangular polygons. The degree of polygon subdivision is determined by the maximum fractal depth. The plan grid, with our square cells here, is divided into true triangles, which represents a maximum fractal depth of 0. Return the plan view to its default location. And let's turn off Terrain Polygon Edges and close the View Preferences window. Alt-click the main camera here at the bottom of our plan view to activate it, and Control-click a new location somewhere around here. So Control-click. Once again, VNS wants to know, where should I put that camera? What elevation? The current elevation at that point is 2059. Where I clicked, I'm going to make it 2100. Save the project. Render a main preview. Depending on the amount of RAM you have, one of two things will happen. VNS will either take time and think about what it's going to do and start rendering, or you'll get a memory allocation failure. To save time, VNS only renders the DEMs it has to. In this project, our main camera is seeing only part of the total terrain. Since we have one DEM, VNS has to make calculations for the entire DEM, which is a waste of time and memory. The solution is to tile the DEM, that is, subdivide it into several smaller DEMs. That way, VNS will only have to render what the camera sees, resulting in fewer calculations and faster render times. Tiling is done during import for most data types, but the gap filling required by the SDTS DEM format precludes it. SDTS DEMs require a second import to tile the single DEM created by the first import. So if you still have that render running, stop it. Let's go ahead and open the import wizard. Icon toolbar, Import Wizard, or Control-I, the keyboard shortcut. And make your way to your project folder, wherever that may be, WCS Projects, and this is the YNP project, so the YNP folder, and there we have the YNP-10M.elev. So that's the elevation file we want to open, and the import wizard will identify it as a WCS VNS-DEM. And let's move through the import wizard to the data positioning page. So load as, okay. Name, fine. We know what the coordinate system is, data positioning. Previously, this is where we accepted the defaults and just loaded it. We could do this now and the DEM would be tiled, but I'd like to show you what the wizard is doing. So let's change settings and move to the next window. And keep doing this until you get to the Output DEMS page. There we go, Output DEMS. The information at the top of the window explains tiling, telling us that the render engine has to load an entire DEM into memory if any portion of the DEM is in camera view. The import wizard chooses DEMs row-wise and column-wise to divide the imported DEM into 300 row by 300 column tiles. That's where the 7 and 10 came from. We're not going to change anything, so import. And you may get this occasionally, even though we imported data that we think is in the same coordinate system. There's something slightly different about it, so VNS wants to know, well, this new coordinate system, do you want this to be the default for viewing and rendering? We'll stick with our original one, so I'm going to answer no. And once again, while all this is going on, the wizard will stay up until it finishes the process down here where it's reading the DEM and creating a whole bunch of smaller DEMs. Let's go down the list in the database editor. You can see at the bottom of the list is the YNP 10M DEM. If you click it, you'll notice that the title bar will update, showing us that we now have 75 objects. And we just selected that object, so it is active and it is showing up in the real-time view, but you don't have a solid yellow look. And that's because it's overlapping it's the original DEM. It is overlapping all the DEM tiles we just created. So we have essentially two copies of the same DEM. Now if we don't disable this DEM, it will still render, which means all that import we did for nothing. So let's go ahead and remove this DEM. We don't need it anymore in this project, so remove it. And VNS gives you the option of removing the DEM from disk as well as from a database. Now we don't want to delete the file from our project folder. All we want to do is just remove it from this project. So no, you don't want to delete this from disk. All right, main view. Let's render another preview. Oh, save. F9 to render another preview. You'll see there was almost no hesitation on VNS's part before starting to render. You'll also notice down here in the status window that we are rendering, in this case where I put my camera, 24 DEM tiles of the 70 we started with. So we've saved ourselves quite a bit of render time because all the area the camera can't see that has those smaller DEMs in it is being ignored at render time. Let's group the 10-meter DEMs on a layer for easy selection. Select the first DEM, shift-click the last DEM, and the title bar should show 70 of 74 objects selected. Go to the Layer page and show the Properties panel. You'll see Top which is the default layer VNS creates on import. Add, to add a layer, let's call it DEM, DEM, 10M for 10 meter. This will add all the 10 meter DEMs we selected to a layer named DEM 10M. To test it, select the DEM 10M layer and select. That will select all objects on that layer, and you'll see we have 70 of 74. Now that may not seem like much right now, but it will be when you have hundreds of database objects.